Hello, everybody, and welcome to Sharp Cuts, episode 7. Garrett, we've made it to 7, and our guests, they keep getting better and better. We don't have to recycle the same guests. We can shoot for the moon, and we can get a couple of Olympians here. This is already going well, and we're like 10 seconds into the episode. So my name's Josh Nickel. I'm going to pass it over to my guy from Yes Guy Gaming, Garrett May. It was your idea to start this show, and I'm loving it. I enjoy doing it every week. Hopefully the listeners continue to gain, and we can pad some more numbers. But if you're listening now, thank you, and let's get this one started, Garrett.
Well, thanks, Josh, and welcome everybody to Sharp Cuts. Josh and I joining forces, trying to have some fun. I love how you said guests keep getting better and better every week. So just a quick shot right at Dan and Oscar, our first guest. You guys stink. We got way better this episode. And we're doubling up on the Olympians this time around, which is a new thing. And so I'm expecting this to be an Olympic level episode. So no pressure. A quick intro to our guests because I want to hop in right away with these guys. Family members. There's a bit of a family theme here on this show so far. I think this father-son duo is actually a lot better than the father-son duos we've had on the show so far at business, volleyball, just general good looks, and being great people. Double Olympians, it's Don and Ben Saxton. Welcome to the show, my boys.
Thanks for having us. Yeah. I'm actually disappointed that you didn't have your dad on this one.
Yeah, well, he tried desperately, and we had to tell him, hey, sorry, Dad, like, we got a couple of big shooters, beat it for this time.
I figured he might be a little embarrassed because the last time we played was World Master Games, and he was a little embarrassed there. So.
Okay, so we're getting right into it, Don. I phoned him literally yesterday, and I said, hey, I'm having Don and Ben Saxton on. What should we talk about? And he said, well, you could talk about how Don kicked my ass the last time we played at the World Masters. The exact same thing he said. He was a bit embarrassed, but he did bring it up.
I have to admit that's probably the first time that I ever beat him on the beach because he was a much better beach player than I was growing up. So.
Well, Don, this is Sharp Cuts, so don't be afraid to throw a few chirps every now and then because it's a little nice for the show. I've heard the Saxons are nice guys. Don't be afraid to get in there because you're being nice. He told me you kicked his ass a lot.
Nice
indoors.
Us being nice guys too is kind of it's more what Dad always taught me is whenever people are talking to you, you always smile and nod and then just sort of do whatever you're going to do anyway. So you always seem like a nice guy whenever anyone's talking to you, but when it comes down to it, you just ignore what people say anyway.
Not ignore, you just have your own way of thinking.
Okay, well, I hope we're taking notes, Josh, because if we ever pay attention to them and see them just smiling and nodding, we'll know that's exactly what's going on. So, Josh, I know we got lists, we got tons of stuff we want to cover with you guys, big shooters in Canadian volleyball. Where do we want to start, Josh?
Well, I hate to exclude the listeners this early, but I feel like John has to be on the episode for us to really dive into this grudge match they had. So we're going to leave that as just like a teaser right now, and we'll circle back to that when we can get John on the show. But for now, our past episodes, we've discussed the business of volleyball, Garrett, and I think there's stuff we keep missing. There's difference of opinions, and I thought these two would be great to have on the show because not only what best friend of the Passin Dimes podcast, Ben, has developed with the NBVL, but Don has owned a facility. He's run events. Like, he was a high-level player. Like, he's done it all. So I think for anyone to educate us and maybe some of the listeners on the business of volleyball, it's got to be these two guys. So maybe we'll start with Don because in doing some research for the show, I heard a rumor that you actually started 14U Boys Western Nationals, and you didn't really have permission of Volleyball Canada to do this. You just thought it was such a great idea that you're like, I'm going to start events. I got a venue. I'm going to do this. So take it from there. We'll put you on the spot as a new guest on the show. You got to start that story, and then we'll dive into the business of volleyball from there.
That's one of I would say, the sore points in my career is we basically started catering to volleyball players, any volleyball players. So that's what our business model is based upon. Volleyball players that are good, volleyball players that are bad, adults that just want to play and they don't know what they're doing. And so we've got what we call the Dome Club around here. That's anywhere from 11 to 14-year-olds, and most of them are beginners. They don't know what they're doing at all. But this is another thing that John said in one of your podcasts, that there is no business model. I believe there is a business model. We've had a business model it's taken a long time to develop, but it is working.
Well, that's a great point, Don. Sorry to jump in. Because you're right. Whatever he was saying, we got to completely disregard and ignore and maybe listen to what you guys, because you've been actually doing it. But how do you kind of attract people and get people excited about and engaged in what you guys are trying to do, the stuff you're starting? Because it just seems like, and I mean, Josh and I'm going to be taking notes absolutely, because we need this advice for Passin Dimes Sharp Cuts. But you guys seem to have an uncanny knack for getting people to jump in, to buy in, and keep things for the long term. I'm just curious, because you mentioned business model. How are you getting that going? Because it's not an easy thing in Canada and volleyball or just in general.
So again, I've been watching your show, and you guys seem to put a high value on selling the product and sort of making it making it look good. I'm exactly the opposite. I've always focused on making the product good, and then it's word of mouth. Basically, we don't advertise hardly at all around here. We probably should. If we had somebody like you around, obviously we'd be thinking about it more. But for many years now, basically, okay, what do the people want? How do we make it better? How do we make all the parents want their kids to be in this program? And you have a good product. You have a consistent thing that you're doing every year, and more people want to do it. More and more kids want to come and play. So it's not that hard.
So it's about quality. So Sharp Cuts might be in trouble.
Yeah, we're screwed if you're talking about making the product good. I mean, we need the shortcut on Sharp Cuts to get it going. But so like, what for volleyball? What does that mean? I'm kind of curious, because for us it's pretty clear. We got to have stimulating conversation, make sure it's fun, and that, Ben, you're right. It's been a challenge, and the quality of guests I think really plays into that. Josh, we maybe need to reconsider who we're having on the show. I think we're
Nothing
starting
to do with
well
the host.
here.
It's always on the guest.
I'm not going to have any problem selling you guys at all on the fact that volleyball is a great sport. Right? Volleyball is a great sport. It's non-contact. There's lots of parents that are very happy to have their kids in non-contact sports. It's healthy. It's social. There's a whole bunch, especially girls at age 10, 11, 12. It's probably their first choice.
And beach volleyball is almost COVID friendly.
But anyway, it's just a matter of making it a good enough program, and there's any number of parents that want their kids to at least try it, at least start it, and then if it's a good program, they keep going.
See, Josh, I'm already learning the differences. You talk about volleyball families. We got the May family, and we got the Saxton family here. East Coast, West Coast, well, prairie vibe over there with you guys. Just, you guys are talking about making it good and people will come. Where the May style is a little bit differently. Shout as loud as you can from the mountaintops how great you are, and then hope that people will come. And, you know, I'm already seeing a difference of approach here.
Both work.
Yeah, well, put them together.
Yeah, exactly.
We got to get John and us together. Let's or you and John, you guys, John, us, like we could build something.
Well, I'd be remiss if we didn't talk about the business of volleyball. The last time all of us were together in the same place, it was pretty explosive. And I'm talking about the Edmonton FIVB event. I mean, it's basically the last time many of us were together, just period, because of COVID. But that event we had in Edmonton, it was crazy. And the business side was, we won't need to get into that. But it was a blast we had there, eh?
Yeah, very fun.
But you were the one that made it crazy as far as I'm concerned. It was what you're doing with this podcast, what you're doing with that kind of stuff, that is the best thing that ever happened to volleyball in my mind. So.
Well, that's an easy way to get yourself invited back on the show, Don. I mean, it's for sure. And I promise you, viewers and listeners, we did not tell these guys to say this. I mean, wait, John, can we confirm? John, you didn't tell them to say this, because it sounds like it's exactly what we wanted to happen.
Can confirm that was a genuine, organic comment there. So he's welcome back anytime, I feel.
Damn. Well, cool. Like, and that's the thing, right? It was with club kids. I feel like there's a lot of volume of people kind of jumping in, buying into the sport. A lot of times, and, you know, Josh and I, we've talked on the show and in the past, we talk about the business of volleyball being around kind of the top level, the kind of the best athletes. But really, that's the minority of people who play the game, right? You're talking about fans, rec players, youth players really make up the bulk. And I think that's something we haven't done that well. Just curious from your guys' perspective where that fits in and how you've kind of approached kind of working with that group in your business and what you've been doing.
So going back to the 14U, if this was an example, the 14U event that we ran, basically we had a whole bunch of good 14U players by the time they'd gone through 12 and 13 and whatever. Then they were, you know, very competitive players, a lot of them with older brothers and sisters, or, you know, looking up to better players in the club. And we just decided, well, why don't they have some sort of nationals? Why don't they have some sort of big competition at the end of the season? So we invited some of the teams from the other provinces and talked to some of the provincial associations like BC and Saskatchewan, the close provinces, and said, okay, how about if we have a tournament, and how about if some of your best teams come? We got various levels of support, various levels of teams that were or more like associations that were not really supporting it, but okay, we can give you some names and numbers. So it was basically an invitational thing, and I think we had 18 teams or 14 teams or something like that the first year, and we called it the Western Canadian. I don't know if we called it the Nationals or what. Nationals. Was it Nationals?
I was 14 at the time, so they made it around me.
Okay, no, I'm seeing the inside. Okay, no, you ruined. You showed your hand. That's why you were doing it, wasn't it? Come on.
Anyway, we had some good 14U boys team, and I think they were first and second that year, right?
First and third.
First and third. Wow. But that was the idea. Was let's have some sort of competition at the end, and Volleyball Canada heard that we were calling it the Western Canadian Championships, and they sent me a cease and desist letter, and the Volleyball Alberta basically said that they couldn't support it because of some of this stuff, and they told the refs that they shouldn't support it, so none of the refs would ref. So we basically just hired a bunch of people to come and volleyball people that would come and ref for us, and we ran it anyway. And it was a good event. So lo and behold, next year, Volleyball Canada sends me a letter, and we would like you to host the Western Canadian Volleyball Championships for U14. So we ran it the next year, and then the year after that, they took it over. They said, okay, now we're going to run it here, we're going to run it there. And as far as I'm concerned, fine. That's, that was the whole idea, was develop something else for 14-year-olds to play. And
it had nothing to do with the fact that you had your son playing on one of the most dominant 14U teams of that age, right? Like just total coincidence.
Yeah, well, we needed competition, so they brought the competition to us.
Well, it sounds like you didn't get it though. You came first and second, so I was like, hey,
the third.
I'm pretty sure your dad did something for his sons pretty similar. Like gave his sons the best the best opportunities to play also. So.
Well, sort of. He didn't run any tournaments for me, I think. I don't know. I don't want to say that and then it come back that it's totally not true. But I don't think so. But then again, that's a little bit of a selfless act. Like, hey, let's run a tournament for all these people. He was more like, hey, we need to make my son the best. So whatever tournament it is, we're going to go there and dominate. So yeah, again, difference of approach there for sure.
Anyway, 13U is next, and we're thinking about doing that before long. So Volleyball Canada, be aware. I do have some grandchildren coming along, so they need to have a place. So.
Yeah. I think Lily's 3, so we'll probably have a 3 and under nationals coming up pretty soon.
Yeah, well, it's funny because Max, my half brother, is also 3. So he's now they're the same age, and now my dad's got another kid who may be coming through trying to. So hey, it could be happening.
Well, I do want to build on your earlier point there, Garrett, about you mentioned how inclusive they were with the rec level and just the participation level, because that's something that frustrates me here in Ontario is you could go to Ashbridges Bay on a Thursday night and there's 1,000 people there, but they don't know that my guy Garrett May won world championships, or they don't really care. But one thing that, Ben, you started was the NBVL, and I believe one of the early goals or the intent of that was, well, if people aren't going to follow individual players, which you have to do in our sport at the highest level, maybe they'll follow teams, right? And that was your concept of making a league base, but the team wasn't, Grant O'Gorman and his partner at the time. It was under an umbrella of it. Someone's going to own this team, they can name it, they can do that stuff, right? So how about you take us through that process, how, your dad's a solution guy, he finds a problem and he finds a solution for it. You did the same thing with the NBVL, so how about you take us through how that process started?
So sorry, just before you go, Ben, just for myself, who's a little bit less intelligent, and some of the viewers who might not know, the NBVL National Beach Volleyball League that you started?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. I'm caught up. Sorry to interrupt.
No cease or desist coming. You can call it national, I think. I think that's enough.
I mean, I hope so. Nobody please cease and desist us. We can't handle it.
So the naming of it may have been a little ambitious, but I'm still trying to grow it, so it could turn into something. I mean, it's in 2 provinces now and in 2 cities, in Vancouver and Calgary. But yeah, basically the thought process behind starting it, as a kid, you grow up, you see like the NBA, NHL, and NFL, like all of these pro leagues that go on, and then for volleyball, there's nothing. But that's the sport that I happen to play and happen to be raised on. So it's like it's kind of as a kid, I grew up. I wished that I could play in all these things. I started basketball, and it was my favorite sport at the start because it's like, well, I can see myself on TV and doing all this crazy stuff in basketball if I do well enough in basketball. But if I play volleyball, then where do I get to go? Yeah, so I mean, it's part of that like dream as a kid. I wanted to see a volleyball league, and it still hadn't happened after I went to the Olympics. And it's like, well, I have a bit of a name now that I can use to promote something, and I had an idea to build something that's not really in place for sort of between high school beach volleyball and national team beach volleyball. There's not really anything in place other than some small provincial tournaments for adults. But yeah, so I just wanted something that those players could play, and then also a way to highlight men's and women's game together, which is sort of the unique concept that is NBVL.
So I'm curious, Ben, because like the challenge is getting people to like give a shit about what you're doing. So I'm curious because Josh, I know you were working with something similar, and you guys kind of worked together. There was a bit of action going on in Toronto, Vancouver, Calgary. Like, are you seeing a ton of people coming and invested? I know we've been cut short by COVID and can't really do this sort of stuff really anymore, or it's postponed or whatever. But in the times you were able to have games, you have weekly stuff, did you find that people were coming and invested and giving a shit and there was some character, or was it still a struggle?
Yeah, Toronto, well, I mean, was sorry, Ben, you go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, there's people that are interested. Like, it was surprisingly not that hard to find owners, like team owners, to want to be part of the league and to be able to draft their own team, to be able to pick the players from the local talent. We had a little combine where people could go do their physical testing and do a little bit of play against each other, where the owners can come watch the players and sort of see who they want to draft. They're also drafting men's players with the women's players at the same time, so they have equal stock on their team, which I thought was a pretty fun concept. So I went with it, and the owners seem to have a good time. Dad's a part owner in the league, so he's had the experience doing all that.
So like he said, he grew up wanting to do this, to play for the NBA. I guess I did a little bit of that too, but once you get to this stage, it's a thrill to be an owner, to be able to do the draft, to go through all those things that you hear about, you see. So yeah.
But so what is it, like the winner of the league gets a chance to play Ben and Don Saxton in the final, or like, or Ben, are you drafted, or are you just like, nah, I'm business guy? Or you like, do you play?
I actually signed up for the league this year, but obviously the season got canceled. But I haven't played, or not canceled. It's suspended, and potentially we'll play in the summer if things open up enough. But for now, we're still too uncertain about things reopening, so I can't really give a start date. But
so you registered, and it could be potential that your dad doesn't get a chance to pick you on his squad?
So we had the draft, and they actually did end up drafting me. They traded all their picks.
Traded all of our picks.
They traded all their picks to get the number one pick, and they picked me on their team. So.
Well, okay. I mean, a bit of nepotism there, but hey, I mean, all your picks for one. So was it just Ben versus the rest, or?
And actually, Camille is also on the team because she's a team owner. So we have a strong. I think we have a strong team.
Strong 1-2 team.
Well, is it just you though? Like, do you have to go 1 versus 2?
No, this is you guys. You Toronto guys. You think all the good players are out in Toronto, but there's some decent players out here.
Oh no, I don't mean to insult. Well, I mean, I don't mean to insult the players out there, but if I happen to do it by accident, that's okay. But no, I meant that if you traded all your picks, does that mean you only picked Ben, or you had other players?
We traded our second pick for somebody else's 6th pick. We traded our 3rd pick for somebody else's 5th, like that. So, yeah.
They traded up massively to get you, Ben.
Yes.
So I was flattered.
Well, would you have been pissed if they didn't? It's like, Dad, I'm available and you didn't trade up to get me? What the heck?
No, I mean,
we're trying to build a brand here, and he's part of the brand. So
Yes, exactly. It's funny. I was joking with my dad about hopping into the one volleyball league that's kind of trying to start up here in Toronto, the indoor style. And I said, Dad, I'm not going to play if like I don't end up on your team. Like I'm not in the business of doing that. And he goes, oh, I don't know, Garrett. Like I don't have first pick. Like you're gonna have to. I was like, well, how do you know I'm going first? Like, but it never ended up happening. So, cool.
Yeah, but that's part of the business part of it, the fun part of it. That like getting there's owners that want to get involved because they want to be part of this business. Like my dad is a good example. Like he wants to build his own brand now as part of the league. So that is the opportunity for sponsors to come in. Is you can come in and you can build your brand based on like however you want to. Like build your team based on your brand or build your brand based on your team. And so it's a way to sort of promote your own company as well as promote volleyball. And then plus the players get a little added attention, and there's a whole sort of story building portion of league play that you can get rather than like that's sort of what I like about leagues so much is that you have an extended period of time that all these teams are playing.
Yeah.
It culminates in one final moment, basically, so you can build a story all the way up to that final point. Whereas on tour, where you play a series of tournaments, it's like, okay, there's this tournament, and this team won this tournament, and now in the next tournament, it's like, okay, I want to follow this team, and then they lose the first game, and now that team's done, so who do I follow? So it's a lot harder to do that whole story building process in a tour-based model than in a league-based model, which is why I really wanted to build a league.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting you bring that up, Ben, because we chatted about this on another episode of the show where we talked about kind of what does volleyball need in terms of marketing and perspective to help grow the game. It's kind of interesting you bring up the storytelling. I don't think it's something we really talked about hugely. And I guess I'm curious from your guys' perspective, like, you know, and we had our own opinions about it, whether they were crazy like mine or a little bit more reasonable like some of the others, discussing like what volleyball needs. So I guess I'm curious because we're on it, like, Are you thinking that that's something huge that could really help volleyball, bringing in a storytelling, like a week after week type episodic nature of the sport where you can kind of get invested in the story? Or do you think it needs more character or, you know, more the better product, better players? Like, what do you think is going to help your guys' league, the business kind of grow from that perspective?
So I do think storytelling, like all of that, will help the sport. But I think something else that I haven't heard be touched on yet is statistics. Is numbers. There's not enough numbers. Like you see all those other pro sports and NBA.
I mean, math is scary.
Yeah, all of those things. There's so many statistics, which also leads to fantasy sports, which I think is a huge way to market sports. And NFL wouldn't be as big as it is without fantasy football being so huge. Like statistics and fantasy sports, I think, are such a huge complement to any sport. And yeah, volleyball doesn't have enough stats that are public. Like it's so hard to find on the FIVB. Like a game happens, how many blocks did a guy get? Like you see Phil go play and dominate a game, and it's like, wow, he got so many blocks. You want to see how many blocks he got, and without going back and actually rewatching the tape and counting yourself, there's no way to find it unless you have volumetrics, which is kind of a secret thing for the. For the players or the programs that can afford to get volumetrics, but it's not a very statistical sport, and there's no, like, stats are the easiest way to highlight players. I think is like how good is this player? How many blocks can they get a game? How many digs do they get a game? How many kills?
This was our leading scorer. This was our leading blocker. Yeah. Like this is our leading digger. All that.
The easiest way to highlight star players is through numbers and stats, but it's done so poorly in our sport.
I think he's absolutely right. I had no interest at all in NFL football.
But you play fantasy?
I joined a fantasy league about 3 or 4 years ago, and ever since I've been learning more and more and getting more and more excited about specific players. Like I love Patrick Mahomes now, and I never even heard his name before. So,
he's pretty new, but
well.
Josh, we're doing it. Okay, NBVL. NVBL.
National Beach Volleyball League, NBVL.
It's all right. You can call the show Cut Sharp or something. Just it's fine. Josh, it sounds like we got to start and involved in a fantasy league for your league, Ben. Like, are you kidding me? Let's do it.
That's the next step for me.
I'm picking you first overall, by the way, and I'm trading my second pick for my 6, and I need to get that.
Yeah, well.
So you guys keep those stats, like, for your league, right? I'm assuming you must.
Yeah, we do. I mean, we keep blocking, digging, attacking, serving. We keep those stats, and we haven't turned it into a fantasy league yet, but I have sort of prototypes and an idea of how a fantasy league would start. But yeah, we need to get the statistics in a database that's easier to manipulate, that I don't have that.
Volleyball adds an extra layer to this, Garrett. I would let you take Ben first overall, because I imagine in his league, nobody's going to serve him a ball. He's going to get 0 kills because he's going to have 0 attempts. There's an added layer to this.
He's going to rip like 12 aces a game at least. He's going to get like 12 blocks. Like, he's going to win every game 21-6 because, I mean, it's Big Ben. Are you kidding me? What are you talking about?
So if aces and blocks are weighed, see, I need to understand the league before we go into the draft, because there's a lot of this. Like, if you
I
get
don't need to understand it. I just pick Ben and that's it.
There is an element, so fantasy volleyball, there would be a strange element there, because yes, usually the better player on the team doesn't get served, and so they get fewer kills, they get fewer stats. So actually, usually the second player on the team will be the higher stat getter, which makes fantasy beach volleyball extremely interesting, because who do you draft first? You want the best player who gets to serve the most. So it's like, how do you pick that?
That's why I'm picking you.
Yeah.
We need some interns. I feel like
in the fantasy league.
I'll win for my owners. So my teams will win a lot, but my fantasy owners might not.
We need some interns, because fantasy football to me is fun when I can be angry on my couch on Sunday and getting live updates about how my team's doing. I don't want to wait till the next day to know who did well in the Vancouver League. So if anyone's listening who needs like an internship, we got the job for you. You can be doing live stats for the league.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know if it sounds like a really glamorous position, but
they can come on the show too. They can offer themselves.
We'll throw that in there.
Josh beat me in the finals of our fantasy, the Volleyball Canada Fantasy Football League. Josh beat me in the finals, so it's he wasn't angry this year on the couch playing fantasy. I was in the finals.
That's true.
See, but Josh is a numbers guy. Like, you know your stuff, Josh. You're the numbers dude, and I just be picking on feeling. I'm like, I think this person's good, but you'd have all the analytics and you kick my ass.
Guys as well, so we relate to that. That's yes. Partly why the statistic stuff is.
It calls to us.
Exciting, yeah.
Yeah, well, all you guys nerds would be kicking my ass in fantasy, so maybe I shouldn't join. What the heck? I say, as I'm a game developer, like programmer, like, yeah, I'm the big nerd here. Gosh. Well, I mean, that sounds like a really cool idea, and you can count us in. I mean, any listeners out there, if you want, comment down below, or well, not if you're listening on the podcast, but let us know. We want to hear that. That would be a ton of fun to do and get a bunch of people involved in. So you planted the seed here successfully.
Last year there was the finals, and Vancouver, the top groups from Vancouver came and played the top teams in Calgary. So maybe at least if you wanted to do something about that's going to be sort of the highlight if we can do that again. So.
But I actually did hear the KBVA, so the Kits Beach Volleyball Association, they're starting up an FIVB fantasy league. So if anyone's interested in that, go check out the KBVA's Facebook page, because I don't think I'm allowed to play because I'm technically one of the players, but that they can pick, that they can choose from. So,
didn't know that.
But yeah, if you're interested in playing some fantasy FIVB this year.
Well, I mean, the guys on Western, back when I played indoors, they used to do a CIS fantasy league. And they kind of had it fully set up for the university players, and they had a point system or whatever. It was pretty sophisticated. I don't know if they still do it anymore, but you could definitely draft yourself. And there was always a bit of a, like, because they had the draft and I never played, but I was like, okay, who got me? And when did I get picked? You group of douchebags. Like, and I never got picked that high. And I was like, boys, what are you doing? Like, and I always told my setter, Sean, I was like, Sean, like, you better pick me early and then just dish me the butter all year. Like, it's a perfect recipe for success. So I don't see why you couldn't play, Ben, and just be like, hey, Grant, I'm going on 2. I need a few more fantasy points.
How your CIS career went, I think your setter did pick you on his team, because he did set you pretty much every ball. So.
Yeah, well, and then there was one year where he didn't have me, and he still set me a ton. And he's like, I'm just giving this guy points every time.
I can see how there's a conflict of interest, so opportunities to point shave here, but we'll figure that out. I think that it's a growing thing.
Yeah.
All right, Josh,
Well,
what
Garrett,
we got next, man?
we
Seems
should move on
like
to the next
we're
one.
sold. Like, you sold us successfully. We got the business guys giving us the full yarn, and we are hook, line, and sinker. So let's move on before we change our minds.
This is what Jake Neal would refer to, instead of calling it sharp cuts, this is a pillow fight right now. This is too soft. We're all agreeing. It's just too much. Like, yeah, exactly. Bit of a pushover, but
Well, shut up, Josh. What do you even know? Okay, sorry. Maybe.
There we went sharp
Okay,
again.
yeah, all right.
The other thing I had on my list, again, based on the panel we have today, with Garrett included in this, with the Saxton family especially, is just the ability to make your own environment high performance, like to find solutions. So full disclosure, I'm a national team staff member, and Ben Saxton, refuses to be in our daily training environment, doesn't want to be coached by me. So he's moving all over the country
I
just
wouldn't
to get away
either,
from
to be
us.
honest, so that's okay.
Well, you got to give me a chance here. But anyways, he decides that he's going to train in Vancouver last year with Grant. Now this year you've got like camps in Brazil and you're still doing some other training. So we'll start with Ben on this one, but just the opportunities you've had to really take control and ownership over your career and say, that centralized training, that's really not for me, but I'm going to do it my way and it's still going to be high performance. So how about you take us through that process of how you own your development instead of just trying to like rely and say, oh, it's coach's job to make me better. I'm going to get better on my own.
Well, in your defense, I made that decision to take my training environment in my own hands well before you were a part of the
It's okay to say, Ben, that it was exclusively because of Josh. I think we're okay to throw that out there.
I heard that Josh would be joining the program in a few years, so I made sure to get my
Smart move.
No, I mean, I am very fortunate. I want to start by saying that I have the support that I do, that I have the parents that I have. They have backed me financially. They did back me financially when I was getting started, and then have constantly provided support throughout my entire playing career. And I know that a lot of players don't have that, and so they don't have the opportunities that I had. And one of the biggest opportunities being that they had a property in California that I could just go and live at when I needed to in Huntington Beach, and it was like a mile off the beach. So it was very easy for me to decide I want to move to California and train against those Californian guys because I had that support and that just that ease of going there that I know isn't easy for a lot of players to do. And so that was sort of what started it was, there's American teams are some of the best teams in the world. And at the time, Canadian teams, they're competitive, but they're not.
I won't take it personally, Ben. It's okay. You can swing away.
I mean, Canadian teams are good, but they're not at the same caliber as the guys that were in California. And so it's like, well, am I going to get a better training environment there with those guys, or here in this mandatory system that the guys just aren't good enough? And so,
I would argue that Ben did go to a centralized system. That's all that the American athletes basically go to 2 or 3 beaches. So he did go to a centralized training place, but it's not the Canadian one. It wasn't the accepted Canadian way.
Yeah, and I also, being from the West as well in Alberta, it was probably more expensive for me to go be training in the Toronto Center than it was to go in the California Center, where we had a house that I had to pay like minimal rent for, compared to being in Toronto where it's not cheap. And so fortunately, I also teamed up with Kame when we decided to go make this move. Kame is also an Alberta boy, so it's similar for him. It's like, I'd rather go to California than keep paying rent in Toronto. So it was a no-brainer for the two of us to go do that together.
So it sounds like it was kind of a good timing, good match, good mix. It made a lot of sense for you guys to do that. But also, like, it's nice of you to thank kind of your parents and stuff. That's maybe the most thanks we'll hear to any parents on this show, maybe ever and maybe ever again. So super nice moment. We're not used to that here. But I'm curious too, because it was always a struggle for me as a player, because, you run in your own practices, say, even when we were in Toronto, like, there were guys here, like back when you were doing that, Ben, I'm here in Toronto trying to train, and we get decent teams to train with, but it's always a challenge to try to get the group that's going to really bring high intensity. You got to you don't need to, but are you going to get a coach in there to really push you and kick your ass? Are you going to get another team who you build a relationship with, where you have a good training relationship, where you're really going to challenge each other, and you don't get guys across the net just going, oh, I just want to work on light setting today, when the other team's like, oh no, like, come on, are we going to work hard or what? Like, I'm curious how you guys were able to, because you had success, right? You're Olympian, you guys went there, you had a lot of great results on tour, so you must have in some ways found a way to make an environment for yourselves that you got what you needed. I'm curious, because I was never able to do that. How were some of the things that you guys found to help make that happen?
Well, I mean, it is kind of motivating as well to be kind of a little more autonomous, to have things in your control, because you don't have stuff that's being handed to you. Not saying that is still happening, but at the time it's like they're telling you, oh, this is best for you, this is best for you, this is best for you. But as an athlete, it's like, I mean, is it? You question everything. If you want to be the best athlete, you have to question everything that comes your way to sort of determine what is actually best for you. And so that's sort of when I left, it's sort of part of it is figuring out what is the best thing for us. And at first we weren't that successful for the first half a season or so. Like we didn't qualify for the first 3 or 4 tournaments. So we went to California, and we committed to it, and we committed to figuring out what was best for us. And so that's self-motivation is sort of huge, because it's like, well, if I do this wrong, then I'm going to crash and burn, because I have nothing. I don't have Volleyball Canada's support behind me. Like if I do it the best way, though, like if I do it what I think is best, and it works out, then it's going to be extra rewarding because I did this. Right.
Yeah, like, and you put your own skin in the game. Like, you go out on a limb yourself, and like, hey, if you fail, it's on me. So it's like, oh, I better make this the best I can, right?
Yeah. And so we went out there and we trained with Casey Patterson and Jake Gibb like 4 days a week, basically, and then another team one or 2 days a week. So it was like that was our core group, was us and Gibb and Patterson, really. And yeah, we trained with Phil and Rosie like once a week, and then other teams sometimes. But yeah, it was Casey and Jake. We trained with them all the time, and sort of our moment that shifted it for us, I think, was so we, like I said, we missed qualifying for our first 3 or 4 tournaments, but in one of those, or in the last 2 of those, so in all our practices with Jake and Casey, we go to 3 like every single time we played. Every single time is so close. Every match, every practice, and then so we don't qualify for two tournaments in a row. That Jake and Casey, they won one in in Argentina somewhere, and then they get second in the next one in Poland, I think, and we didn't qualify for both of those. And then we played.
Actually, I remember going down to California in between after those 2. And talking to Gibb, because again, I got to know him as being around sometimes when you guys are practicing together all the time. And I talked to Gibb and I said something about, boy, you guys are doing great. What are our guys doing wrong? And he said nothing. He said they're going to be there. He said they're just as good as any of these teams, and they're going to be there. And
so then Don Saxton walks down the beach to where Ben and Kim are practicing and just gives them a massive tongue lashing. Get your shit together, boys. And then it happened.
No, I just said, okay, patience, right?
No, so, but yeah. then we played a tournament. It was a World Cup. I don't know what it was. It's only happened one time after the 2012 Olympics, and so in 2013 it was a one-time tournament that Kim and I had qualified for, and we played Jake and Casey there. And we beat them 2 straight, like 15 and 16. Like, we crushed them. It was easy. But then they went on and got second in the tournament, and we didn't make it out of the pool. And it's like, what is this? Like, how does this keep happening?
Oh shit!
But then the next tournament, I think, was World Championships, and we got 5th. And that was our sort of breakthrough tournament. Was Like we beat Samoylov Smedens, we beat Kantor Loziak. I mean, they were still fresh. They were still like 18 years old at the time, but like we beat some really solid teams to get 5th place at World Championships. And like we beat all of the U.S. teams and all the Brazilian teams except for Emmanuel and Alisson. And I mean, at the time, U.S. and Brazilian teams are so dominant that it's like, well, if you beat all the Americans and Brazilians, you did a good job.
Yeah.
Nowadays, there's a lot more Europeans and stuff in the top mix. But no, that was in Stary Blanki.
Oh, that's right.
So I'm curious because, with all it sounds like you guys had your kind of breakthrough moment, and Don, you were kind of present in that training environment. I'm kind of curious because, I mean, you guys are a volleyball family. I mean, your sister Camille played as well on the tour for a bit and has had results herself. And Don, you're an Olympian. Like you guys are the definition of a volleyball family. I also come from maybe not as successful as players volleyball family, but I'm kind of interested to hear about because so when you go down there, Ben and Don, you're saying, hey, you're staying in our place. Like we're helping you out. We're giving you all the support. And what are you not even qualifying for these tournaments? At any point does it come in that you're thinking like, hey, like I've got to step in here. Like I'm a volleyball guy. I know what I'm doing. Like I'm going to make something happen here with my son. Or are you staying fully hands off?
I actually think that I'm a little more positive than your dad by the sounds of things.
Well, a little, a lot probably.
I realize that in the West, especially, we're at a big disadvantage in terms of beach volleyball. Especially, there's nobody else to play against growing up. There's there's not the whole situation. So I was very positive right from the start. I think, when Ben was 14. When Ben was 14, he didn't make the U16 provincial team, and so I sat him down. Indoors, yeah. So I sat him down and I said, so what do you want to do this summer to try and catch up? Because obviously, you're not as good as you think you are. And he said, well, I want to play a lot of beach.
Okay, hold on. I got to stop you. That's hilarious because the exact same thing happened to me. Yeah. When I was 14, I tried out for the 16U provincial team, didn't make it, but the conversation was very different. So you got Don Saxton talking to Ben saying, hey, you're clearly not good enough to be on this team. What do you want to do to get better? And Ben goes, okay, I'm going to do this. We were saying, my dad was going, Garrett, you clearly deserve to make that team. Forget these guys. They're a bunch of idiots. Go play beach. I mean, the result was the same, but the talk was very different.
My dad has always taught me to be very realistic about my own level comparative to other players and all that stuff. So he's not afraid to tell me, yeah, you're not as good as this person. How do you get as good as this person? Okay, I'm going to figure that out.
This is something I've always gone overboard on as his coach, as any of my kids' coaches. Basically, they're the best 14-year-olds in the province, but so what? Or you're the best 16-year-old in the province, so what? Really, you're just getting started. If you want to play at the level that I played at, then you got a whole long ways to go and a whole lot of work to do.
So that certainly fosters a high level of humility, right? Because you're not thinking you're all that great because there's always another mountain to climb. But I'm curious, how does that foster that killer? At some point, you got to be the cocky prick out there, going out there. I'm the big shooter. I'm going to make a block. I'm going to get the ace. Because Ben, I've seen you do that. You've done it against me. So I'm curious, where does that come from? If you're being told by your dad, hey, like you're not as good as these guys. You're not as good as these guys. You're not as good as these guys the whole way.
I mean, it's just sort of. Yeah, that whole competitive nature, like that self-taught, like this is what I can do. Is I want to prove to you that I'm better than you. I want to. This is the person who's a little bit better than me. I want to prove that I can be better than them. So it's kind of just a self-motivation always. That's just like, okay, this is the next rung on the ladder. This is the next guy I need to show that I'm better than them. And then also, people who are behind me on the ladder, making sure that they see that I'm going to stay better than them as well. So like playing against guys like you, who's that young guy coming up, it's like I got to make sure every time I play Garrett that I shut him down so that he doesn't think that he has a chance of passing me, right?
I mean, or serve my partner, but I mean, okay, a little bit sensitive here on the show. I mean, it's fine. But so I guess it's then just your competitive drive to prove that you're better than everybody. You've been practicing that sounds like since you were 14 and you didn't make that team.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's not about me having to think, oh, I don't have to think that I'm better than that guy to be better than that guy. It's I need to work to be better than that guy in order to be better than that guy. So it's like, what can I do to be better than that guy, rather than being told you're the best, go prove it. It's okay, how do I be the best?
See, Josh, I'm learning how the Saxtons command a high level of respect among the volleyball community here in Canada, and the Mays have a little bit of a different love-hate relationship. So we're learning a lot on this show. We're getting growth. It's happening. I appreciate it, you guys.
It's not right or wrong. It's just different. There's no right or wrong.
Better way to say it. It's I'd rather be able to talk about what I have done than to talk about what I will do. So I want to do these things first and then talk about it, talk about how good I am, rather than talk about how good I am first and then maybe not do it, right?
And where did you get that, Don? I mean, it sounds like because do you have your parent coaching you, or I mean, you're dealing with this stuff as a young player as well, making the Olympic team and all that.
Yeah, I've been coaching players for a long time now, like since my Olympic career, basically. So every kid is different. Ben's attitude was that he was pretty confident. He was always pretty confident inside. Not somebody that I needed to build up. There's lots of players that I also coach that I sort of, you have to give them compliments regularly, because otherwise, my daughter, Kemi, is every bit as good as he is, I feel, as a beach volleyball player, but she's the other way around, that you got to sort of keep giving her positive stuff. Yeah, oh yeah, you're coming, this is getting better, this is getting better. Whereas Ben, I think it was a little bit more the other way around, that he's getting a little bit overboard now.
So Ben's actually internally the full of himself guy.
So he doesn't say it, but I know it. Like we talk, so. Yeah.
Oh, now I'm gonna be looking for that.
Yeah. But I don't know. Like I say, every kid is different, and I have learned as a coach to handle different kids different ways. But it's.
But also, when you play people and you beat them and don't talk about it afterwards, then it hurts them worse than if you beat someone and talk about it forever. It's like, well, I beat that guy beat me and he doesn't even care. So it's like I'm nothing to them, right? So that's part of it. You don't show people that you're.
I mean, I appreciate you say that, because every time you beat me and didn't talk about it, I was thankful. I was like, gosh, don't tell anybody that I lost to Ben Saxton again. Thank you. Ignore me, please.
Anyway, when he was 14, that's when we decided, and I took him to California. I sent him to California with a great guy named Mark Ellingson, another beach guy. And he basically took 5 of these guys down to California for a month, killed them. I got there 3 weeks later, and they were barely walking. Like they were going twice a day and walking a mile back and forth to the beach every day. And most of the other guys were just ready to go home. And Ben was, Dad, I'm going to play this. This is going to be my sport. Like he made the decision when he was 14 that he was going to be a beach player. So it went from there. It was his motivation more than mine.
Yeah, again, another stark contrast in style between the volleyball families. Ben making the decision himself that this is the sport he's going to play, whereas me from an early age getting told, do you want to be the best in the world?
Well, you were for a bit.
And me going, yes, I do, please.
I mean, but both parenting styles, they work. Like there's a world championship there and there's an Olympian here. So like there's success on both sides, right?
It's absolutely true.
It's also part of my belief there's not one right way to do anything. Like for every different person, there's a different way that you can possibly, like that you can figure something out.
So I do want to dive into the training environment, because I think Garrett brings up some good points. And Garrett's mentioned on our podcast before that he really enjoyed playing with Grant, because Grant switched it on and he was going to bring intensity to practice. And Ben, I think just because you're quiet doesn't mean you're not intense, right? So you've had that training environment where you're in California and you're playing against the Americans, so you felt at that time were the best, but more recently in Vancouver playing against part-time players, right? So how are you able to still bring like that intensity and your world-class standards to guys who have a day job and essentially are doing you favors by being your training partners, right? Because they're not professional beach volleyball players, right?
I mean, yeah, you can always challenge yourself at practice. It doesn't matter who you're playing. Like, if I need to, I'm going to handicap myself or get my coach to handicap me as much as needs to be, that I lose most of the time. Because if I'm if I'm getting challenged like that, then I'm figuring out a way to win when I'm severely disadvantaged. And then when it becomes an even playing field, then it becomes then it's just sort of natural that okay, well now it's even. This is easy. I can play a regular volleyball match against guys that are the same level as me.
If you're in a practice environment that's being run by a coach who's not your own, or say somebody else, or maybe there's no coach, and you're saying, hey, we're actually going to handicap us in this practice because we're kicking your ass too bad. Like, is that something you genuinely do in a practice environment?
Well, so the thing about being in Vancouver or Calgary and training against the guys who sort of expect you to be better than them, they actually don't mind. They're there for us. They know that they're at our practice, and so they know that if there's going to be handicaps, it's going to be against us. And yeah, there's a little bit of they don't want to be given these gifts, but I mean that's also motivation for them to be better so that they don't have to be handicapped so much.
Right. And I guess if you're playing a good team, then you don't feel the need to because it's competitive.
Right. So if we're at another team's practice, then usually their coach is going to not put too many disadvantages because the teams are at the same level. Like there's not too many teams. I don't think there's any teams that we would practice against where the other team would get the handicap against us, unless it's something that like a 15-10 game or something where you're going to switch after one set is over so that both teams get the same disadvantage at least an even number of times, right?
Right.
But yeah, so when you do play against the high-end rec players like the KBVA, they're solid players, but not quite at the international level. They understand that they're at our practice, and so they're there to learn from us, and it doesn't really hurt them to be handicapped.
Well, that's a pretty nice relationship to have with a group of training guys. I mean, not a luxury that a lot of people have or a lot of people could handle. I mean, if it were me, I'd be pissed. I'd be like, don't be handicapping these guys. Like, I got to beat them legitimately. And I mean, that's why I always loved and hated training against Grant. He's one of the most annoying people to play against on the planet. And I mean, I say that to his face all the time. We played club together. He and I were on the same freaking club team. But I loved training against him because I never found a situation where if one of us was kicking the other's ass, which had happened regularly when he was playing with Sam Pedlo, they were together, me and Dan, we'd go head to head, and it was, vice versa. They kick our ass, we kick their ass type stuff when somebody has a bad day. But with him, it never seemed like, it was never okay. There was always some learning. There was always something that was happening when that was happening. If they were getting their ass kicked, they were pissed. He was not cool. He was vocal. And if they were kicking our ass, he was talking through the net like, hey, pick it up. Like, what are you guys doing? Like, we're wasting our time here, which was annoying at the time, but also like helps elevate the level, I feel like, of the practice. So I always loved that about Grant. I guess he's not doing that with some of the guys from the KBVA, though, if they're just kind of your training guys, but maybe with some of the other guys you train with.
I don't know. I think maybe my laid-back style of play has dulled him a little bit, but unfortunately, because that's his. I don't want to take away his style of play. I think him and Sam Pedlo sort of, you figure out the way that works best with your partner, right? So him and me, it's a little bit less of that, where him and Pedlo were both that type of player. So it kind of fit better.
So you're saying you make Grant less annoying?
I mean, maybe.
Yeah.
Don's like, yes. Don, were you worried when Ben was like, hey, I'm playing with this kid, Grant? Are you thinking like, this is the most annoying kid on the beach? Like,
I didn't know that about him so much, right? I didn't know Grant all that well, so I actually like Grant. I think he's a great guy, but on the court, I wish he was a little more feisty than he used to be, and I wish Ben was more feisty like he used to be too. I think he's getting old. But.
I mean, you don't look at Ben, but
that just uses senior discount this year, so.
Yeah, talking about getting old.
We're talking about handicapping. So today is a perfect example. We practiced this morning, and in Alberta, we're not allowed to practice with adults. They're not allowed to be more than one adult in the court at a time with a coach. So we had an 18U boy and my daughter, because she's also allowed in the same household. But basically, I'm blocking against Ben, and I'm using a basketball backboard as the blocker. So this is a bit of a disadvantage for him, but he's learned how to score against a huge block, like a bigger block than he's ever going to see. And
Well, look at you guys abusing the regulations and finding a way to make it happen.
Exactly, yeah.
I mean, mad respect. So, like, you're in the training environment.
Probably would be able to put up a solid block, but he's not quite
Maybe
there
not
anymore.
that big, yeah.
He's not quite in his prime anymore.
Yeah.
Okay, so who do you think would win? Me and Don versus Ben and John May?
Oh, there's no question.
Well,
it depends on what age. If you're talking about
Now. No, I'm talking tomorrow.
Right now?
Right now.
Dad's got a hurt back. So
I've got a herniated disc.
So you're
Well, my
actually
dad has no shoulder.
We got one player in his prime right now out of those 4 players. So I think.
Did you?
I feel good about mine and John's odds.
I don't know. There's the psych factor though too. I think it'd be tough for Ben. I think it'd be tough for John too. So.
I agree. Like the chirps that'd be coming across the net would just be fiery.
You guys would win the banter. I don't know. John would probably banter for the 2 of us.
Yeah.
That's true. Don, you're in practice with Ben today, you're saying. Is it ever come to a point where you just pull a dad moment and you're like, Ben, we need to get your shit together? And Ben, you're thinking like, I'm an adult. I'm on the world tour, Dad. Like, what the heck?
I mean,
honestly, no. We had a practice about 2 months ago when Ben was, I wouldn't say awful, but we were trying to do something new, and he was awful. I don't want to say that, but he really couldn't do it.
You sucked, Ben.
Yeah, sharp cuts or cutties over or whatever, and this was again with the basketball backboard to block him, and he was pretty bad, and it's the first time that I've seen him sort of ready to quit himself. Like he's usually, okay, I'm just going to try, I'm going to keep going, I'm going to figure it out, and he had a heck of a time, and then the next practice, all of a sudden he could do it. And I found this with both him and Camille is basically you just have to tell him, look, you can do this, you have to figure out how to do this. And they'll say, no, that's impossible. I can't do that.
I have
and then 2 or 3 practices later, it's going to work. So
I remember that practice a little differently. Yes, I was struggling a lot, and then I remember, like my mom was sitting there watching the practice, and Camille was beside me setting, and they both start like I'm making error after error, and they both start just sort of cheering for me, and I actually hate that when I'm struggling and people are cheering extra hard for me just to.
That's the Saxton chirp is actually cheering for you.
The Saxton chirp is cheering for me. It's like, okay, so they're cheering for me because I'm doing badly. So to me, it's like, frick, they're seeing me do badly. I don't like people to see me play badly. So so to me, they're like, they start cheering and I'm like, I don't need cheering. I just need to do it right. So I wanted to just keep doing it over and over and over until I got it right, basically. And then, I eventually figured it out.
We might have still been there.
It took a day, but.
Man, that's just good, wholesome family fun right there. And I cannot relate. I mean, good for you guys. It's super exciting. Wow. That is different than my experience. So good for you guys, man. Getting pissed at cheering. I mean, I would be so hype if my mom and my brother is sitting there. Can you imagine Reed, my brother, cheering for me in a practice? No, he'd be like, Garrett, you suck. Get out of the way. I'm coming in there. I'm going to do it better. My mom, too.
I won't let them stop until I do it right. I won't let the drill end until I get it right, basically. So
you guys were there for several hours.
My motivation is I will continue to do something until I figure it out. But then, if they're cheering for me, then it shows me that, they see me struggling. I need to extra do it right now.
But this is right from U14, U15, U16. Like basically, I sort of lead them. Okay, if you're that good, you should be able to do this. And with Camille, it's she. I'll tell her, so you should move up a little bit, or you should do this or that, and she'll totally overdo it. Like I tell her to move to the sideline, and she's standing right on the sideline. Like she's not just taking a quarter of a step; she's taking.
You told me to stand on the sideline. I'm just doing what you said.
Yeah, exactly. You would probably be like her. You're gonna just no, impossible. But then a few days later, she's doing it right, and she's taking something out of it, which is Ben is way more measured. When I tell him, look, you might try this, then he usually tries it. And half the time I'm sure I'm totally wrong, and he knows it in his brain. I'll try it. I'll give it a try, but then I'm just going to do whatever I want to do. And with Ben, I trust him because he does know more about beach volleyball than I do. But he at least pretends to listen, which is nice for me.
Well, you guys got Olympic pedigree, and I mean, we had Sam Schachter on the show, and I asked him this question. I'll ask you, Ben. I mean, Olympics happen. You guys are trying to qualify. What can we expect from you and Grant? You guys are obviously shooting to qualify, to get some hardware. What are the expectations? Are you going to make any bold predictions here on the show?
I mean, we're going to put forth our best effort. So we're going to play as well as we can play, as long as we can play for. So whether that brings Olympics or not, and whether that brings a medal or not, we're going to put forth the highest effort that we can, and we're going to train as hard as we can to get there. So
do you know what it's going to take to make it happen? Like, what do you guys need to do in the next few months to get it going?
Numbers wise, it's going to take like 2 or 3 podiums in the next 5 tournaments, or the continental pathway, basically. So,
all right, Saxton. Well, you better get back to training. You got to make 2 or 3 podiums so we can get 2 Canadian teams in the Olympics. And we need to see that. We're going to be in that FIVB pool, Olympic pool, and I'm picking Ben Saxton first overall for that one. So wishing you guys the best of luck. Josh, I got to be honest, this is maybe the first episode in 7 that I don't want to stop hanging out with these guys. I mean, I've been done with the other guys, and I mean, first time I don't really want to go, but we're kind of out of time, so maybe you got.
And I think when you're dealing with top tier guests, you got to stick to your commitments. When we tell them it's an hour, we can't just keep them here all day. I don't think, but
I mean, I'd like to, but we got to be a little bit respectful.
It's the first time that the 2 of us have talked about volleyball all day, so
I'm sure.
I'm happy to come back at some point.
Well, I mean, you guys keep talking nicely about the show like you started off. I mean, gosh, we're going to have to throw out some more invites. Are you kidding me? Respect.
It's awesome. Keep going, volleyball.
Well, thank you guys for joining us. Josh, why don't you close us out, man?
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank our guests. This was awesome. You know, Schachter's an Olympian, but he's not 2 Olympians, and he's not a volleyball family that can challenge the May family. So I definitely got a lot out of this episode. And if you're still listening, you're amazing. Thank you so much for joining the show. So you can always catch the show on Mondays on Garrett's YouTube channel over at Yes Guy Gaming, or maybe you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Podbean, Spotify, Google Play, wherever you listen to podcasts, you can find that out. So we're thankful for any listeners we get, and we're more thankful for any guests that we get, because that's how the show works, Garrett, because I think individually we're pretty boring, but you put us together with some other volleyball people, good things start to happen.
I totally agree. Thanks, everybody, for watching, and any last-minute words, boys?
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
And that's it.